Hi, I'm Maya, and today I want to talk about a few of my favorite YA books. So I'm going to start off with The Goose Girl by Shannon Hale. This book was everything to me as a teenager. I have read this book no less than 15 times. Easy. Maybe more. I read it on a constant loop in middle school and high school over and over and over again because it's amazing and I can't recommend it enough. It's a retelling of the Grimm's fairy tale, The Goose Girl. Shannon Hale is amazing at world building. It's a magical place where a few people have special talents. Some people can speak to different elements like fire and water and wind. Some people can speak to animals like birds. Some people can use their speaking voice to control other people. So there are lots of different abilities, and it's a very cool magic system. The character is amazing. I am really impressed with how Shannon Hale is able to have her main character be a softie, like be a really gentle person without being a complete pushover and without being boring. I feel like so often if we have a main character who's like pure and perfect and like never does anything wrong and is really innocent and naive, it's kind of boring. But Anna Dory, the main character, or Annie as she goes by, I think she's so interesting. Like, you're rooting for her the whole time. You want her to overcome her hardships and her trials. She starts out as a princess, but then it all goes south and she has to become a goose girl. And watching her journey, watching her triumph at the end is so satisfying. The love story is so good with her and her prince. It's just, I just want to reread it right now. It's so good. It's so good. Yeah, there's the map. Yeah, so this is actually a series, but you don't have to read the whole series. Like, you can and you should if you're interested. It's a great series, but Annie's story is pretty much completely wrapped up by the end, so this can be a standalone. Like, if you only want to read one book, you can just read this one and not worry about the rest of them. But the other books are about like side characters in this book, and so if you want to learn more about them, it is fun to read more, but you don't have to. And I have not read the other three books as many times as I've read this one. This one is my fave. Crown Princess of Kildare was born with her eyes closed and a word on her tongue. She spent the early years of her life listening to her aunt's stories and learning the language of the swans. Then a colt was born with a word on his tongue, his name, Falada, and when Annie spoke it, she found the key to his language too. But as Annie's gift grew, so did others' mistrust of it, and soon her mother felt she had no choice but to send her away to be queen of a foreign land. Shannon Hale is a really good author. I also love her like contemporary adult books, Austenland and Midnight in Austenland. Those are both great. I think I've talked about them on my channel before when I've talked about my favorite like Jane Austen inspired books. She's just very talented. She also wrote The Princess Academy, and that actually won an award. I think like the Newbery Award or something. Very good. She's good at like princesses and like medieval times and like fantasy worlds. She's really good at that. But back to this book specifically. Yeah, a really cute romance, really amazing magic, really compelling plot, and I feel like it's a really good retelling of a classic fairy tale because it adds to it while still staying true to what the original story was about, like the original elements in that story. It just expounds on them and like takes that original kernel and has it pop and blossom into a whole new detailed amazing thing. The next book I want to talk about is Heartless by Marissa Meyer. I have talked about Marissa Meyer on my channel before. I have talked about her book Gilded, which I loved. She also wrote the Lunar Chronicles, which is a great sci-fi series based on fairy tales, princesses, Cinderella, Rapunzel, Snow White, Red Riding Hood. Those are great books. It's a great series. I love the romance in those books. This book, Heartless, is by the same author, and it is the story of the Queen of Hearts in Alice in Wonderland. It's her backstory and it's her origin, and it explains why she's so wicked and evil when we meet her in Alice in Wonderland. It's really sad because it's like this romance, but of course it can't end happily because she's evil. Well, she doesn't start out evil, but we learn what causes her to become evil. Similar to how I was talking about the Goose Girl, Marissa Meyer is good at taking inspiration from fairy tale and then taking an idea and running with it, making it her own, having it like explode into something new. Yeah, it's also kind of spooky. I liked that because I feel like Marissa Meyer's other series, The Lunar Chronicles, you don't really get spooked in those, I don't think. But this one had some more like eerie parts, some more macabre images that fit really well with the kind of creepy Alice in Wonderland vibe. So switching gears a little bit and veering kind of away from fantasy, I wanted to talk about To All the Boys I've Loved Before by Jenny Han. I think I've mentioned this book before in another video on my channel. I have to bring it up again because it's so good. The movie is amazing. I watched that movie. I'm sad. That's like my comfort movie. And the book is great too. And its sequels are also good. Feels like you're eating a cupcake when you read this book. Light and fluffy and sweet and heartfelt, and great romance, great family relationships. Reading the bond between the main character, Laura Jean, and her sisters and her dad. A very cozy book. For me, it is the quintessential YA book. Like when I think young adult, I think of this book. If I'm not thinking about like fantasy books, because then I have other books in mind for that, obviously. But if I'm just thinking like archetypal, contemporary YA novel, I'm thinking of this. Peter Kavinsky is the ultimate dream boy. He and Laura Jean so good together. So cute and adorable. So to go back to fantasy for a little bit, I want to talk about Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Laini Taylor. So this book is about like demons and angels and like their rivalry and a forbidden love between an angel and a demon. It's so good. Really great world building, great love story, interesting philosophical questions about what is a monster, what makes a monster. And then the sequels are also good because this is a series. Flipping through, I'm like, dang, I should reread it. Yeah, great characters, great side characters that support the main character. And there's also like a cute little spin-off novella or something, like a little short story. I got it on Kindle and it was about like her best friend and her little romance, and that was so cute. This one is fun because it's urban fantasy, so it's a good blend of a contemporary setting, right? So like I think it starts out in Prague, but I think they travel around the world. So you have, these modern day cities with modern vehicles, outfits, speech, all of that is modern, contemporary, very much entrenched in the real world. But then you have the fun element of angels, demons, magic, creatures, magical creatures and powers. And so to see those two combine is really cool. It's also fun because there are like flashbacks to the more magical world that's hidden in a way that's not a part of the real world, the real contemporary modern world. The flashbacks are fun. I don't want to reveal too much and like explain the flashbacks too much, but definitely worth a read if you're into like other urban fantasy YA, like the Shadowhunter series or anything like that. Then if you like that, you'll like this one. Okay, and the last one I want to talk about is All the Crooked Saints by Maggie. I don't know how to say her last name. Stiefvater? I don't know. This one is great because it's a standalone. I feel like the other ones I mentioned are all series. Well, not Heartless. Heartless is a standalone. But yes, Daughter of Smoke and Bone is from a series, and so is To All the Boys I've Loved Before, and so is Goose Girl. But All the Crooked Saints is a standalone book. So if you're looking for a standalone, if you're sick of having to read a series every time you want to read a book, look no further. This is a great standalone. This one is very touching and really makes you think about mortality and good and evil, and makes you think of big concepts like home and punishment and salvation, and it asks the big questions about miracles and where miracles come from, and exploring the concept of completely inexplicable things that don't make any sense at all, and how the human mind wants to make sense of it and has to make sense of it. This is a very cerebral book. I feel like usually I am drawn to books that are character-based. I feel like for me it's always about the characters, their relationships, their bonds, their motivations. For any book I read, a classic, a YA book, anything, I'm usually drawn to characters. But that's not the case with this book. This is like the one exception. Not to say that there aren't good characters, there are, but I feel like it's less about the characters and more about the big concepts, the big questions, and the plot and the setting are more important than the characters. It's hard to summarize, it's hard to encapsulate in just a few sentences because there's so much going on here. Questions of religion and morality and everything. Here is the thing everyone wants, a miracle. Here is the thing everyone fears, what it takes to get one. So that's I just want to reread it. It's so good. Maggie is a master. Her writing is so rich and has such a wonderful lilt to it. Like, you feel like you're listening to a song when you read her book because the way the prose moves, it's like water. It flows, it ebbs, it goes up and down. And I feel like I'm sounding so mystical and cryptic and weird, but that's how I felt when I read this book. Anyway, a lot of her sentences throughout the book start out like that. Here's the thing. Here's another thing. Any visitor is likely to find a landscape of dark saints, forbidden love, scientific dreams, miracle mad owls, estranged affections, 1 or 2 orphans, and a sky full of watchful desert stars. At the heart of this place you will find the Soria family, who all have the ability to perform unusual miracles. And at the heart of this family are 3 cousins longing to change its future. Beautiful imagery, dark, startling pictures, so lush, and it sticks with you. Okay, so those are a few of my favorite YA books and ones that I would definitely recommend if a friend asked me for book recommendations, specifically young adult novels. I would suggest these ones to them. So yeah, The Goose Girl, To All the Boys I've Loved Before, Heartless, Daughter of Smoke and Bone, and All the Crooked Saints. So you've got some fantasy, you've got some urban fantasy, you've got some fairy tale retellings, and some contemporary romance. Just a good charcuterie board to get you started. Sample different things. That's one thing I love about the YA genre, is that it's so broad and can have so many different paths for a reader to take. I love them so much. Looking at all of I just want to reread all of them right now, and I think that shows how good they are. So yeah, thank you so much for watching.